Right there at the end of it, that song, it gets real repetitive, but it gets a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
And I ended up throwing Carson.
No.
I don't know if y'all noticed it or not, but my notebook's at the house. Because it would have done absolutely no good today. Literally, Olivia, we wake up this morning and first thing I say to her this morning is, I'm sorry. And I don't even really know what I'm apologizing about.
Well,
And then she says, well, what are you preaching on? I don't answer. And I come out and piddling around and make coffee. And as I'm going back up the hallway, I said, hey, what I'm preaching about, I'll tell you the title. And it was simply, I'm sorry. But if you look at the screen, it's obviously not that. So we went from, talking about, and I'm going to paraphrase this and I'm going to butcher the verse. I can't remember where it's at. Where it says, talks about humble yourself and then you'll be exalted and stuff like that. And that's where I was going. And we was going to Greek about what the humble is. And then literally we sat at the table and Olivia was doing her makeup and I was sitting at the other end of the table having my computer up. We was putting songs together. And I had the title page, the title screen all prettied up, and there was a background picture. And I said, well, it ain't dead is where we're going. She said, huh? I said, well, just hold on. So this morning we're going to be at Mark chapter 5. We're going to start in verse 21 and go through 24, and then we'll jump down to 35 through 42. But when we get to 24, I'm going to stop and then I'll paraphrase the story in the middle. We all know where this is. We've all been very familiar with this story, and I'm not going to apologize for preaching it because I don't think I've ever preached this one. I don't know. I don't think I have. Have I? Olivia, do you know?
you just got Matthew. Get one more.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's just Matthew.
Well, I put the wrong one on there.
You put the I'm sorry on here?
No. I typed Matthew looking at Mark. Well, glad everybody's got their Bible with them. So just leave it right here. You ain't got to do nothing until it's on. And when Jesus was passed over again by ship into the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. Mark chapter 5. Did I say Matthew?
On here it's Matthew chapter 5. But
Did I say Mark though? Okay. Mark 5, 21 through 24. And then 35 through 42. You gonna help me preach?
Oh.
Go ahead. So, they just don't want to sit down.
And London Dad.
So, looking at this, and when it says in 23, where it says, he besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. Well, Brian, I don't have anybody in my life that's at the point of death that I've got to, seek Jesus out. Well, maybe you're in a situation right now where something that you're in is on the verge of death. Mm-hmm. Well, Brian, what do you mean? Maybe You've got a relationship that's at the point of death. Maybe you've got a marriage that you don't know which way to go from here. That everything you've tried has smacked you in the mouth. That you don't know where to go from here. And the outside looking in, it's at the verge of death. And now you're at the point where you're crying out to God and you don't know what other way to turn. And you're just screaming, God, this is fixing to be done. I need you to fix it right now. That's what Jairus is saying. Jairus, whatever you want to call him. When you preach it, you can pronounce his name another way. But that's what he's saying. He's saying, my daughter's fitting to die. Yep. There's you a good greenback vernacular. Fixing it. Jesus says, all right. I'm coming with you. And then you've got verse 25 through 40, or 25 through 39. No.
Okay, well, Brad's been in an accident.
Is he all right?
No, Pete was on his motorcycle.
Father God, we just ask you right now, Lord, that you touch Bubba. God, I don't know the extent of anything, but you do, Father. God, we just ask you, Father, just to touch him. Put your arms around him, Lord. Whatever is going on right now, God, we just ask you to touch him, Father. God, we just ask you just to be with him, Lord, and just let him know that you're right there with him. Father, we love you and we praise you. Amen. So, where I was saying is, you're in this situation that you feel like everything's done. And now I know I didn't have notes. Because from the outside looking in on Jairus' situation, it looked like it was done, like his daughter was on her deathbed, like his daughter wasn't going to take another step. And I'm going to re-preach where I started just to get going again. And the situation you're in, you could be sitting there and got the phone call right there and you don't really know what's going on. Or, like I said earlier, your marriage could be on the verge of death. Your relationship with your kids could be on the verge of being done. Everything could be falling to pieces around you. And you cry out to God and you seek Him and He starts following you. And you're like, hey, He's coming with me. This is going to get fixed. And then right in the middle of your storm, somebody gets His attention instead of you.
Yeah.
Lady with the issue of blood fights her way through a crowd, risks getting stoned. Jairus doesn't know anything about this lady. Doesn't know that her situation is just as dire as his is. But the only thing that he sees is somebody got in his way. So, as they're making their way to Jairus' house, palace, whatever you want to call it. This lady's on her hands and knees crawling through the crowd and gets to the side of Jesus and just touches the hem of his garment.
Yeah.
And when she touches the hem of his garment, who touched me? You got to think, though. Think about it like this. Who's a big famous person that people flock around and they let them get close to them? I don't know. I don't watch enough. Anyway, let's go with, I don't know, Brad Pitt or Alan Jackson or something. Everybody's trying to get around them. That's a big difference between Brad Pitt and Alan Jackson, but whatever. And everybody's flocked around them, bumping into each other. And it's a crowd like you would see at the front stage of the concert. Just trying to get as close to that person as they can. And you know when he walks by the edge of the thing, everybody and their brother is touching him. And as she touches his garment, he said, "Who touched me?" I can just imagine everybody around Jesus saying, "Well, everybody and her brother's touching you." But she was desperate. Because her situation, she felt like she was dead. Nothing was going to change. Nothing was going to get any better. But when she grabbed a hold of the hem of his garment, everything changed. And as she stopped, I can imagine Jairus is saying, "Don't stop, come on. I need you over here. You can't stay in this spot. We got to go." And Jesus just turns his back, is what he feels like he's doing. You ever been in a spot where you were crying out to him and you felt like he turned his back and just ignored every problem that you've ever had? You ever felt like you've been in a spot where he just said, "You know what, forget Brian. This person's more important"? You ever been there, or is it just me? You've been crying out and saying, "God, you've got to fix this because I can't. I've got to get out of this rut. I've got to get away from this spot." And it looks like everybody and their brother's getting blessed around you. And you're like, "Well, if it ain't one thing, it's 19 and a half. And if it ain't the main water line broke, it's my plumbing's backed up and my sinks won't." I'm still preaching Brian's life for a minute. And then when the sink gets unclogged and everything's fixed, there's another leak under the house. And then when another leak under the house, we're going to get it fixed, you get a phone call, your brother has just been in an accident. I know what Jairus feels like. When everybody and their brother's getting things handed to them left and right, and when it feels like everything's going right for everybody but me. So this morning, this message ain't for nobody but Brian. Because even though everything looks dead, go with me to verse 35. Mark 5:35. And I'm going to go through this slow. It says, "While he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further?" You ever been in that spot? Waiting on him to answer you. You get the phone call, everything's done. This is it. This is the end. Everything's messed up. Everything's jacked up. Everything went down the toilet. It's better than saying down the crapper. Just everything's finito. I think that's how you say that. But anyway. And I guarantee you, the first thing Jairus looked at him and said, because he was human, it's what Brian Brandon would have said. It was right here. So, "See, you let her die." You ever get mad? You ever let your temper get in the way and you get mad at God? I guarantee you Jairus got mad at Jesus right then and said, see, if you would have hurried, if you would have ignored them, my problem was bigger. If you'd have said, hang on, I'll be back, she'd still be alive. You ever said that to Jesus? If you'd have just hurried up, we wouldn't be here. If you'd have just showed up when I asked you to, then he always has this response back. And you almost want to get madder at him when he responds back like this. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid, only believe. Like, God, I had faith in you the first time I asked. I had faith in you 4 days ago. I had faith when I brought it to the feet of Jesus. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. What, are you coming to preach your funeral, Jesus? What are you doing? Just think with your daddy or your mama mind for a minute. What would you have been saying right there? You've been madder than a wet hen. Come here. Get a little closer to me. Maybe you're fixing to fight. If you would have... Redneck's coming out in me, sorry. But I've been there. I've been in a spot where I was fighting mad with God and I didn't even realize I was that mad at Him. If He would have been, I'd have been like Jacob wrestling with an angel. If I could have got a hold of Him. I'm not letting you go until you fix this. Maybe, just maybe, that's what He wanted Jairus to do, was to not let go of Jesus until He fixed it. Because sometimes in our life we realize and we think that we can handle it by ourselves and we can do it on our own. And the only thing that He wants us to do is to hold on to Him just a little tighter. Hold on to Him just a little longer and realize that we can't do any of it by ourselves. Because if He would have just been like, and ran straight to His house, how much faith would that have took? Would have took nowhere near as much. Would have took nowhere near as much leaning on Him and trusting Him if He'd have fixed it right off the rip. And He suffered no man to follow Him save Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And He cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and seeth the tumult and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when He was come in, He said unto them, why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. Remember the song, Red Letters? Those letters are red.
Yep.
Can you imagine the power that come out of those words? She ain't dead, she's just asleep. But listen to the response the people had. And they laughed Him to scorn. When they started laughing, He said, you out. You out. You out. If you ain't got the faith, get out of here. He said, you ain't going to believe this if you've seen it. Go and get it. He taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, and entereth in where the damsel was lying. And He took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Talith cumi, which is being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years old, and they were astonished with a great astonishment. You may have thought it was dead. You may have thought it was done. But it ain't done till God says it's done. It ain't dead till God says, hey, it's time to come up. This is it. This is the end. But we forget that it's on His time. And we want it on our time. See, like I said before, if He had ran straight there, yeah, it would have been an awesome miracle that He healed her. But how much greater is the power that comes from that testimony that she got up from the dead? Y'all ain't hear it. How much greater is the power that comes from that testimony that she got up from the dead? Amen. That she was not breathing, 0 pulse. By this time, she was probably cold to the touch and getting a little stiff. Organs not functioning, no blood flow, no nothing. No oxygen to the brain. Should have not done this, not come back. Stood up and walked. No rehab.
Amen.
No walker.
That's right.
No learning how to walk again. Got up and walked. How much greater is that miracle, and how much more power is her testimony than, well, I was almost dead and Jesus brought me back?
You got it.
Tam, I'm not saying that your testimony is not awesome. But how much cooler would it be like, hey, I died and Jesus brought me back alive? You know what I'm saying? So just because you thought your situation was toast, when God shows up and said, hey, we ain't over until it's over, it ain't, I ain't saying that one. It ain't over until it's done. It ain't over until I say it's finished. When He shows up, that dead, dying, stinking, decaying situation can get turned around in just a minute.
That's right.
So what's it take? It takes seeking Jesus. Yes. It takes trusting Him. It takes not being afraid and having faith. It takes saying, you know what? I've got to get my fleshly mind out of this. I got to get my, hey, you've done this, this, and this for other people in front of me. What about me out of this? I got to say, God, you can do it. Because it doesn't say that Jairus and his wife laughed at Jesus when He said she was just sleeping. It said the people there mourning did. It didn't say Peter, James, and John laughed at Jesus. It says the people that were there mourning this, or mourning did. Brian, what are you saying? I'm saying surround yourself with some Peter, James, and Johns. That whenever you get in a spot and it looks like everything's gone, looks like everything's dead, that they don't laugh when you say God can handle it. They say, you know what, you're exactly right, because here's what He done for me. Here's what He done for this person. Here's what I've witnessed Him do. It takes a little more faith. It takes a little more radicalness to put faith in something that you've never seen with your own eyeballs. It takes even more faith in that to say, God, here's my family. Here's my situation. Here's my marriage that looks like it's crumbling. Here's my job that my career is going down the toilet. Here's my brother that everything looks like it's going wrong with it right now. Now what? Are you going to let it die? Or are you going to have faith that it ain't dead? whatever your situation is today that you feel like it's dead and gone and buried, and done embalmed and just done. I want you to realize the faith that it takes to say, here you go. Because it's the exact same amount of faith that you put in that chair when you sit down in it, that it was going to hold you up and not let you fall. If you can put that much faith in an inanimate object, how much easier is it to put faith in the God that made the universe? How much easier is it to have the faith, to put that much faith in God that knows the amount of hairs you have on your head? If you're Brian, it's a whole lot less. How much easier should it be to have faith in the God that knows how much water is on this earth? That knew you in the womb and had a purpose for you before anybody else even knew what your name was going to be. So when you sit down on something, I want y'all to think about that. I've got enough faith in this to hold me up. Do I got enough faith in God to keep me going? So as I'm fixing to play this song, I need y'all to think about the situation that you've got going on. You may not have a situation going on that you feel like it's dead and gone. But you know somebody that does. Stand in the gap for that person. Because that's what Jairus was doing. Yes, he was there for his daughter. He was praying to get his daughter healed. But ultimately he was standing in the gap because she couldn't pray for herself. Who's that person that you know is in a dead situation? Stand in the gap for them this morning, that their situation gets turned around.